Hey everybody, it's Eric in the garden. Hopefully you like the midwinter convention video that we did last weekend. Prior to that, the last video we did was on should you be worried about these warm temperatures in your garden. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The other part of that video was weeding. I'm pretty disappointed in myself that I didn't finish the job. I'll show you why that's a concern. This is a garden the last day of January. When you see it in the distance, it doesn't look that bad. That bed was pretty much done last time, and I tackled this bed as well. So you can see a couple weeks later, yes, there's a few leftover weeds that I can easily pull up, but for all intents and purposes, this bed is cleaned up. The one thing that's shocking, this is the last day of January, and look at that bush. That rose bush is totally leafed out. Not much I can do. We are anticipating warm weather continuing into the first week to 10 days of February. Regardless, we know we're going to get cold again at some point. So Mother Nature will take its course. I want to show you one of these other bushes over here where we've already seen some frost and freeze damage. Again, there's just not much you can do, so I wouldn't worry about it. This one right here, Mr. Caleb, you can see it's not as far along as some of these other ones. This is Baby's Blush from John Smith, and you can see some winter damage toward the edge of the cane itself. And much like I mentioned in the other video, you just prune lower on the cane where these ones are farther out. They're much more susceptible. The end of the cane is much more susceptible to frost damage. But overall, you look at the bush, it's plenty green. So whenever we finally get pruning time here, sometime as we get into the month of March, I will cut out the end and I'll go down here to that more dormant bud eye. So again, just prune lower on your bush. Any damage, just cut that out. Not much else you can do. I'm going to end this video with weeding. I finished this bed and it looks gorgeous. I didn't get around to this bed. And you say, no big deal. There's a fair amount of weeds now. I can knock that out pretty quickly, but I don't know if you'll be able to hear this. I'll try that in a second. But once you get weeds that are flowering and they are probably seeding, that is not good news because that's putting weed seeds down for next year. These are winter weeds. I may for the first time try a pre-emergent. On the market, a lot of times people use Preen, might use that or something else. It's called Snapshot. I'm gonna do a video on that, but my goal is to remove these weeds, clean it up, add some compost for the spring, then put down a layer of mulch followed by a preventative weed killer called a pre-emergent. But until I do that, I got to get this stuff up, and I'm disappointed because when it sets seeds, when you see these flowers, it's almost too late. It's still worth removing it, but as you remove these seeds are falling to the ground, and they will probably germinate next year unless you're pretty religious with that mulch or the pre-emergent. I think for the first time this year, I'm going to try some pre-emergent in the early spring and again in the early fall to prevent these winter weeds. But just listen to this, see if you can hear it. You might just hear the leaves themselves, but when I first started pulling out the first couple of weeds, I actually heard the seeds hitting the ground. You can see some of them on the leaves in there right now. So these unfortunately will probably germinate at some point. And beyond the flowers, if you look really carefully at some of these leaves, you can see some of the seeds. It's hard to tell with the resolution of that camera. You can see it right there. Some of the weed seeds that are ready to germinate. So bottom line, get out there, do some of this work. I know we're well away from spring, even though it might feel like it. If you've got some weeds to tackle, go ahead and do that. That way you can apply some mulch and maybe a pre-emergent come springtime so that you don't have any weed issues into the early part of the summer. I'll last leave you with this cleaner bed. Again, this video update was to recap some of the weeding I did, some weeding that I still need to do, and why you really should tackle this weeding before it sets, before you start to see the flowers on the weeds and then eventually seeds. As always, please comment below. Appreciate everybody that has subscribed in the past week or so, and we look forward to more videos as these roses start to grow as we warm up toward the month of March. Take care, everybody.